Hello, and welcome to another episode of Latina Life with Jen and Milena. Our super Latina today is a risk taker. She is a brand manager and social media marketing strategist and coach, the owner of Identity Amplified, a company that guides celebrities, influencers, and creatives in all of those areas. And she is managing the entire social media strategy for this year's American Reality Television Awards. Welcome to the show, Sarah Olea. How are you?
Thank you, Jen. I'm so great to be here today.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you. And Milena's sorry that she can't be here. She's stuck in traffic and she can't make it. So it'll be a little one-on-one time, you and me, to chatting about.
I love it. No problem at all.
Fantastic. So let's get started. Obviously about you and your story. Are you from Los Angeles? Were you born and raised? And is that why you decided to go into social media marketing?
I love that. Definitely not why I started to go into social media marketing, but I am born and raised I was born and raised in La Puente, actually, and that's LA County still. Yeah, I stayed in LA County. It's funny because if you trace my family back, we go into California all the way to Pio Pico, who was the last governor of California. He's actually like my great uncle.
What? No.
So, yeah.
Really?
So when we look back in that, it's like we've been in California since before it was America.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. You guys are you're like royalty. I mean, really, you are. I mean, there should be some sort of like recognition to your family. Are you guys treated differently like in La Puente or not? What?
I mean, you know what's interesting, and you may have experienced this in your family too. When my dad was being raised, it wasn't cool to be Mexican. It wasn't cool to speak Spanish, right? No. In fact, and sorry, my eye is like watering. I think it's allergies.
Yeah, I know.
So
the winds.
I promise. So, it wasn't cool to speak Spanish. It wasn't a second language. You learned it as an elective. And so my grandparents, I believe, especially my grandfather on my dad's side, really wanted to protect my family. And so they didn't teach my dad Spanish. Their thought was go to college, achieve these things. And my dad really wasn't instilled with any Mexican heritage. And then my father was a musician, loved music, met my mother who's Italian. And unfortunately, they both fell under drug addiction. And that was something that was for a long time. But the beauty was that I got to live with my Nana, my dad's mom. And so she raised my brother and I. And that's where we got to learn more of our Mexican heritage. And that's where a lot of my values were instilled in me, because she was this strong, independent woman where I felt like there were no boundaries. She knew how difficult it was being a woman in a career that she was in. She understood the difficulties and challenges at that time being a minority, but that never stopped her. And so that allowed me to see her and know, if she can do all of this, I can do it too. Yeah. And so I was raised without limits, which I think is what allowed me to take risks. And so at a young age, I started down the path of entrepreneurship because I saw people around me fulfilling their dreams and their goals without limitations.
Okay. And that is something important, right? Because when you start and you don't have very much, sometimes you can feel like the walls are closing in on you, right? Sometimes you can't see another avenue. So for you to actually be able to see that there were other avenues for people to take, like, what were you seeing? Like, what kind of opportunities were people seizing on?
My grandmother was, she divorced my grandfather and her. They had a relationship. She actually wrote and published a book about it, a very unhealthy family, dynamic. And she decided after that divorce, she was going to go back to school, actually went to UCLA. And so with 5 children, goes back to school, gets her degree, working for Child Protective Services, which I'm sure is really difficult when your family, we went into her custody through Child Protective Services. Yeah. And that was where she was working and serving. But I got to see a woman who had 2 life paths. She was the stay-at-home mom and took care of her 5 children. But when that marriage didn't end up being how she wanted and expected it probably to be when she first got married, she didn't allow that to derail her. She went on to going to school and pursuing her dreams and her education. And so it allowed me to see the benefit in both being a mother and taking care of your children and raising great children, and yet always also pursuing after your dreams. And so I never saw the limitations that she saw, because she broke so many barriers for me to kind of follow in her footsteps.
Right. It's so interesting. I'm sitting here thinking, because my next question was going to be, I'm first generation Mexican American. My parents are from Mexico, Jalisco and Zacatecas.
Wow.
And, they met here when they were in LA. And I was going to say, well, it shows you, as first generation, your parents show you this work ethic, but you're not first generation. You've been here for, this speaks to like our heritage and our culture, I think, in regards to, right?
Yeah, like the genealogy of the work ethic,
that's the word.
Because I think that there is a generational gap. My generation, so I grew up in La Puente. It was a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. We had a great mix of a lot of other things as well. But I met a lot of my friends were first generation, and their older brothers, were all first generation. But the interesting thing was that because the parents were two household income, both working, some of the kids fell under gang activity and other lifestyles because they didn't have. And then the generation, their kids are learning after their grandparents, and it's like the struggles is either going to allow you to see opportunity, or it's going to push you into a different lifestyle. And I think where it differentiates is really us looking at what our parents are doing and what are they not doing, and giving us the opportunity to see, here's what I want to model after, here's what I don't want to model after. All of our families have substance abuse. There's no family that goes without an alcoholic or drug addict in their family. I think almost every household in America, unfortunately, can relate to that. So in my case, I'm so happy that I had to see both paths, but the one that instilled some value into me, the one that I spent time with, the one that I recognized as the path I wanted to take, was my grandmother, who was first generation, right? So it's interesting how we can see the different generations responding to American culture, society, all of those different things. I think what's also interesting is I also grew up a lot with my mother's family, who's Italian and first, second generation Italian, and not Hispanic, and very different work ethic, very different model of life.
How? Like, how is it different?
It's a lot of family oriented, right? Here's the interesting part. My grandmother on my mother's side was a mother of 5 also. And she ended up getting a job later, but not really a pursuit of education. Just kind of like, we're living the American dream by being here. There wasn't this pursuit for more. Whereas my Nana, she had this pursuit for more. No one was going to tell her she couldn't do something. She, like I said, she recently, maybe it's been about 5 years now, wrote a book and published it. And it was something that she never planned on doing. And she could have listened to herself and say, I'm just going to keep writing blogs and letters for the family, but instead was like, oh, I'm going all the way and I'm publishing this book. And so it's just a different dynamic. And I think that some people can see opportunity and just be relaxed and comfortable in it. And others can see opportunity and say, I'm going to take full advantage of this.
Right.
And that's one thing that my Nana did, is I think she just take full advantage of every opportunity she could.
Now, for you, living in your household, obviously you've got Italian, you've got Mexican, and there's Native American as well there. And was that something that you knew all along, something you discovered recently?
No, I've known Native American my whole life. I want to say I knew I was Native American before I really understood that I was Mexican, because those two blend so much depending on where you're from, right? Exactly. So my tribe being in Arizona, and a lot of my Mexican family being from Arizona and California, it was so blended, even though it was my father and then his father and my grandmother, and his mother. So my grandmother predominantly Mexican, my grandfather Mexican and Native American. So they blend so well and together, So for me, it was all the same. It was just family. Yeah. And then as you get older, you start to see different traditions. Right. And Native American have different spiritual traditions, different, there'd be some Catholics there, but a lot more spiritual overall. So you see differences in that as well.
And so how did that, growing up, or even as a young adult, especially, as you're starting your career, how did that, mix sort of impact you? Did it help guide you? Did it confuse you? Like, how did you deal with who you were and are?
my family has always been one that I think it was about loving and supporting each other. When you look down my family history, as I kind of mentioned to you, they wanted to build this like American family. And I think that they almost took out a little of the Mexican culture to like want to protect their kids and give them the best possible future, because like I said, it wasn't cool to be Latino.
It wasn't. It was
and
not.
so my dad doesn't speak a word. I mean, he speaks maybe 3 words of Spanish.
Right, exactly.
And so for him, he calls himself a coconut. He's like, I'm brown on the outside, but I'm a little white on the inside. And so for us, it was more like, we knew there was a disconnect in our culture. And I think that honestly brought in maybe a little bit of like depression and anxiety in my family when we kind of look at, I think having an understanding of your culture is so important. Who are you? Where are you from? Those are questions children ask, right?
Right.
But I think for my family, it was always about like, how do we just love and support one another as a whole? Like, we have so much confusion in the world overall. Like, how do we just support each other one-to-one? And I think that some culture was brought in, some was just learning and adopting. I think for me, I didn't take the path that my Nana did as far as education. And I think that I always hear her voice a little bit like, go back to school and get your bachelor's.
Right.
But I took an entrepreneurial route. So, I was 19 years old. I think I was making like $90,000 a year. And it's really hard to tell a 19-year-old to go back to school and she's making this money, right? Now, do I wish sometimes? Yes, because I'll be completely transparent with you in this. I had an agency for 5 years. And when I partnered with my business partner, and I've never shared this before, actually, Jen, like publicly.
Okay.
When I partnered with her, I looked at her and thought, she's a beautiful white girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. She's going to be able to open doors that I can't get in. And it was a subconscious thing that I recognized when I closed my business 5 years later. And because I'm writing a book right now, and it's called My Business Failed, I Didn't. And it's how I lost my identity in my small business. And as I was writing the book, I had to ask myself, what made me partner and prolong and things. And when I went all the way back to the very beginning, I remember meeting her thinking, she can get places I can't. She's educated, she's pretty, looks this type of way, right? And I didn't know, because I'd never been taught boundaries or limits. I'd never been told you're a woman, so you can't do this, or you're Latina, so beware of this. I didn't have that growing up. I was shown no boundaries, no limits, take over the world. I was raised by all women, independent. My grandmother had been divorced. My other grandfather passed away. So on both sides of my family, it was women telling me you can do and be whoever you want to be at any point in your life. But subconsciously, I didn't see a lot of me in different businesses. So I didn't know it was a boundary. But I remember thinking I always partnered with males because I needed a man. And then eventually it turned to not just a man, but a female that looks different than I am and educated differently than I am to open doors. And no, negative towards her. It's just me realizing that I didn't value myself when I was a huge asset, and it was my skill set and my network of people that launched that business. I didn't need someone that looked different, that had a different degree, that, had a huge financial family coming from a family of wealth. I didn't need that. I needed to value who I was and recognize that I can create opportunities for more people like me and to be in these doors, What I find interesting when I talk to families or people and women that do struggle with this consciously and subconsciously, they've been told there's limits on them.
Yeah.
I wasn't, but yet we face the same thing. And I think what it comes down to is just familiar. What's familiar? When you walk into a room and you're the only woman there, oh, this is going to be interesting or whatever.
Right.
I should have wore a turtleneck.
Yeah.
Different things like that. And so as I'm writing my book, I'm realizing that although I was never told boundaries, there were some that I had subconsciously that I needed to break through.
That is so interesting. We've had so many different guests on the show, on the podcast, who've talked about, when I asked them, do you remember a time there was a challenging moment that you had to go through, right? And or there are plenty of challenging moments, but it sounds like you didn't meet any kind of challenge from anyone externally, or did you and not realize it?
I think it was an internal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was obviously an external representation of what was happening, right? Like,
yes.
When I met her, I hired her first as my assistant before we had partnered in a business. I was the only woman in the department, the only woman, and the only other woman she was always replaced by somebody else. So, right. Other than that, I'm working with an owner, a CEO, another marketing executive, and all this. And so I hired her as my assistant. And when I thought about starting my own business, I thought I got to take her with me because she checks off all these boxes.
Right.
But I don't think it was ever like someone told me to do it. I just looked around the room and was like, she's going to be attractive to these types of people. She has an education that stands out more than mine. And she looks like these other people. So I didn't realize it honestly until like about a year ago, as I'm writing this book and going back to think, why did I make certain decisions? Because we don't want to make the same mistakes and patterns ahead. I don't ever want to partner with someone because I don't value myself and I think they're valued more, So it was like an external thing, but really an internal value thing. We can see two people. You could see two Latino men walk into a room, and if one's confident and one's not, you want to hire the more confident one.
Yeah.
Internally, it may be that one says, I don't care what anyone says about who I am and what I can and cannot achieve. I'm going to do it. Where the other says, everyone says that I can't reach this goal, so I probably can't. It's a mindset. Is it an external thing? Absolutely. It's what we hear, what we see, what we read. But if we internally process it differently and reframe it for ourselves, will we still come across those challenges? Yes, I did. But now I know I am of value in a room full of men, in a room full of all white men, any kind of men. I am of value here. Right. And so when I realized the internal struggle I was having, the external doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And it's interesting you're saying it's like what you see, right? There's more representation of the Latino community, right? The Latino community. There's still more work that needs to be done in regards to those representatives. They're baby steps. In fact, the Television Academy put out a report, about how still some groups are still, even though there's been a lot of effort in regards to representation, there are still some groups that are still marginalized and still haven't felt the benefits of that. And the Latino community is one, I have to say.
And I think it's us knowing our value and knowing our place and knowing that somebody took the effort to either start a family and a life here for us or continued and persevered through challenges so that we could be in this day, so we could be in this time and be represented and be loved and have our voices be heard. And if that's the case, let's take advantage of that and not, hide behind it. I have amazing, beautiful girlfriends, Latina friends, and I could give you lists of how many amazing of them are that have launched their own businesses, women business owners, strong, first generation, second generation. And when I talk to them and I talk to them about, some of the things that we see going on still today, they're in this place of like, I could listen to that, or I'm just going to pave the way and I'm going to hire people that look like, I'm going to have clients that look like me, and I'm going to change the narrative. I think the only baby steps, the only way we stop taking baby steps and start running is, I think, just go for it and do it. If we're going to be dreamers, really dreamers, we got to dream and execute, and let's just do it, and you're doing a great job with this podcast. It gives opportunity to have some of these challenging conversations and have some conversations of motivation and have some conversations of encouraging others that say, you can do it.
Yes.
I would have thought, when I had those challenges about, I need to have a partner to looks like this and sounds like this and be educated like this. I launched my new business this last year solo, doing a lot of the marketing strategy. I'm consulting Lionsgate on a movie. I've got American reality television, whereas I've got so many different celebrities, making well into the six figures completely by myself in this value of knowing myself, right? Anyone can do it. And I think more now than ever, especially as women, we're creative beings. Not only do we physically create life, but we're great at multitasking. And, we just have this nature that comes with us. The world needs that in social media, in copywriting, in marketing. Men have dominated the tech space. What happens when you bring in more women in those spaces, right? The Artest has a woman running the metaverse program right now and building out a bunch of different stuff. And she comes with this rapid fire creative stuff. And I'm like, you go, girl.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. So I do want to talk about you're overseeing the social media strategy, right? For the American Reality Television Awards. So tell me about the awards, what you love about it, why you were drawn to do social media for it, and then your mission for it too.
Oh, I love it. So a lot of people love reality TV, and I think that we don't always talk about it because it has this stigma that it's negative or drama filled. And I will say that you do find that in reality, but if you think about it, in all of our lives, we face a lot of this stuff. That's why it's called reality TV. Like, it's stuff that we normally see, and you're being a fly on the wall to some people's lives, right? And when you see Grammys and Emmys and Oscars, they're all, highlighting certain types of talent. And reality stars, although they may not be these actors, they're still allowing us to view their lives, right? We're seeing amazing producers and crews working on this content that we are digesting every single day, right? On all these different platforms. And they just weren't being recognized. And Andrew and Kristen and the rest of the founders of the organization, they looked at this and said, wait a minute, these people need voices. These people need to be recognized. These shows, the stigma around them and the lack of creativity that people think that it takes, let's get that all out of the way. And let's really focus on these hardworking television production companies, crews, and cast. And they've done an amazing job over the last several years. And I started working with them last year. So they were one of the clients that I served in my last agency. And we had so much fun working with them. Throughout the pandemic was challenging too. And then this year, they called me back and said, hey, we want to roll this out. And they've elevated so much this year, even from last year, in what they're doing.
Fantastic.
And I really see this becoming an award show. It's already recognized all over the world, but I really see this competing against a lot of the other award shows coming here in the next few years, especially as reality TV is becoming more and more popular. And I really feel like we're moving away from, your traditional television shows and sitcoms and moving to reality as social media becomes more and more popular.
Yes, that's so true.
I've had a lot of fun working with the team. There's interns on the team that are absolutely amazing and really diligent. And we've just had such a fun time working with such a diverse group of people from all over the states, and just building this brand and giving reality television the recognition it needs.
Oh, that's wonderful. And this actually goes into basically like your role and your mission with your own company, right? So it's Identity Amplified. And so when it comes to branding and social media marketing, because that's what everybody wants to do. Everyone's got something and that's good. I love, listen, I've got our passion project, which is really great because it's a platform for so many people to educate, learn from, be inspired by, get the fire going too, underneath them. So what do you focus on when it comes to those creatives that come to you in regards to getting their brand out there? What's the number one rule when it comes to the mission?
I always tell people, we got to start with you being you, right? When we think about all the people we love on social media, they don't care if they're well polished or their makeup or their hair is done. They get on there, they film a video, they post it, right? And there's intention behind everything that they do. If you want to build a brand, like you're asking me what my mission is, what's the mission of the brand? Who's the audience? And the best question is, how do you serve that audience? Do you want to make them laugh? Do you have a service you want to provide them? Are you giving recognition like the Artas? Like, what are you going to be giving the community? We've got a lot of negative things that get spread on social media every day.
Yes.
My goal is to help people take their mission, serve people and love people well through their social media content. And a lot of my clients, especially the celebrity ones, they've turned their backs on social media. They don't want to be involved because of how negative it is. I come in, I change the conversation a little bit. I say, well, hold on. You produce really good music and really good movies. We need to show people that. Let's put more positivity in the feed and in the timelines of social media. I'll help you do it. And so I'm helping them manage their platforms and create content. And I serve a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of new businesses and entrepreneurs. I do group training twice a month. They can hop on. It's very inexpensive. And I teach them, how do we break the algorithms? How do we come up with viral fun content? I have a client, he had 1,500 followers. He just has a reel hit 130,000 today. He's up over 3,000. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Just having fun and having conversations. Everyone has an audience there, right? We have an audience. This podcast has an audience. How do we touch them, impact them? How do we encourage them to take action? And so my mission really is to simplify social media so that they can amplify.
Which is so great, because there's always all these questions, right? Everyone's always talking about social media, this and that. So I'm going to ask you some questions, see if you, pull the curtain, back so we can see the reality of it all. So increasing followers, everyone seems to have like their own idea. Oh, you have to write on someone's post and have them follow back, or there's like a services that hire people. What's the best advice for you to give to anyone? Video
content right now is king. I don't know if it's going to change, but that's what's important. So spending more time in video content and using all the features. In the class that I'm teaching soon, I'm talking a lot about the posting checklist. When you post on a platform, I want you to think about what the platform that you're posting on and really be intentional. For example, if I'm going to go on Facebook, I want to see who just had a baby, who is having a baby shower. I want to see my family. So when I write a post on there about my business, let me make sure that it comes from a friendly family perspective, because that's what people want to see. They want to be more personal. On Instagram, people's attention spans are literally like that. You catch them or you lose them. So let's be really short content, engaging. Don't take a lot of time in your videos saying, hi, my name is Sarah from Identity Amplify. They have swiped past your posts, right? Start right off with the pain point or the one thing, like if you're a fitness trainer, hey, having a hard time losing weight, I got the 3 steps for you. You jump right into it. And when I say use all the features, there's stories, there's reels, there's posts. Get excited about trying out those different features and seeing which ones work and benefit for you. I'll tell you the quick cheat sheet of Instagram right now: 2 to 3 reels a week, 3 stories every 24 hours. Let them expire before you post again. And if you're going to do a photo post or a graphic, make sure it's a carousel. So those swipe ones. So if you've got a selfie, you better take a second selfie and have that be a swipe, or have it be your selfie and your bio after that. Because we want to tell Instagram that our content is valued. People are going to spend more time on our content and keep them on the platform. And those platforms will then reward us.
Oh, good. That's important for all the Latinas out there too, for our Latina community. So let's remember that, because we want to make sure Instagram knows that and hears us. What about that? I would say the challenge to get that blue check mark.
I know.
What is that all about? So everyone's like, how do you get the blue check mark? And I don't know.
You can submit now on the back end. They've made it easier. It really comes down to this. You need 5 good press articles, and they can't be press releases or anything that you can just purchase and do yourself. Finding a publicist or just submitting, right? There's Forbes contributors. You can find Latina business owners supporting Latina business owners. There's 4 contributors that specifically only write on female Latina business owners.
Okay.
Message them and say, I have this podcast, I have this business. Here's why, you should write about me. A Forbes article will be one of 5 very important articles needed to be verified. And, it can be really challenging to verify a brand. It's much easier on TikTok and Facebook. But when you have those credible sources, it really does to help for them to know. But here's the other thing. There's a lot of people making a great amount of money and turning a profit on social media, building an audience and impacting a community without a blue check. It all just comes down to making sure that there is a value in your content and that you're not just asking people to do something for you, but you're giving back. This podcast, for example, you're giving people a platform. You want to ask people to tune in, but tell them, hey, every time you tune in, it helps to grow the voices of the women on this platform. So you're doing something for me by tuning in. You're doing something for the people here. And then tell something like, do a giveaway to have a podcast. Hey, nominate your friends, tag your friends in the captions that you think should be on this podcast. It gets the engagement going, and it's a win-win. When you create win-wins for people on social media, they want to support you. They want to continue to support them because they feel like they're supported by you.
God, I love it. I love it. This is great. All of this 101 information for all of our community. This is where we're going to get stronger. We're going to grow. All right. The last, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. What's going to last longer? What's more impactful right now? Like Twitter, there's so much talk about Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I mean, if you had to do the one channel only, one platform only, which one would you suggest?
It would be Instagram. It would definitely be Instagram. You know, I do love TikTok. Their algorithm beats all of the other algorithms. Wow. But it's not the safest platform to be on. And it's not really driven so much for businesses. And I tend to not like the addiction to it, right? Because the algorithm is so good, they want to keep you on it for hours. You know, like
it's true. It's true.
Is not for hours. I like Instagram. It has a lot of different features. It is owned by Meta and Facebook. So there's great partnerships between those two platforms. So if I had to absolutely choose one, it would definitely be Instagram.
Now, before I let you go, there is what I was reading up on you, and there's this quote, this line that you have: risk can bring failure, and on the other side of failure is success. Yeah. So what would you tell other Latinas who want to follow in your footsteps, start their own business?
Yeah.
In regards to taking that philosophy and not be afraid. I mean,
we're strong women. We're strong women. We don't like to lose, right? And failure sometimes looks like a loss. But when we see failure as an opportunity of growth, it's a big win. When I had to shut the doors of my business because we weren't profitable, it was challenging. I had 13 employees, that 108 accounts we were running. It was heartbreaking, right? But I knew that I'd lost myself in it. I thought failure was my identity. And if I failed, that I was a failure and that I'd lost. What I realized though quickly was that it was just a pivot into where I believe I was meant to be. So when you no longer fear failure, the only option is success. And so I love taking the risk because even if you fail, you still win.
I love it. That's great. May we all remember that. I mean, wisdom, truth, completely. So before I let you go, I know I said I was going to let you go, but after, I know you've got the big award show coming up. That's this Thursday. Yes. After that, did you take a vacation? What's going on? What's next for you? Oh, your book. I know you got your book.
I'm still writing my book. There's a Lionsgate movie coming out. We'll be doing some announcements on that on my website very soon that I'm consulting right now. I've got a couple of projects. I do work with some really cool artists that have fun stuff coming out. But you know, December and November, December is definitely going to be family time, right? I need to eat some tamales. I need to not worry about gaining some weight.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what like we're in the cocina con las madres, con todas, haciendo las tamales. That's it. That's where we're at.
So I'm totally fine with taking a little break and eating some good food.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Honestly, it was so enjoyable. I can't believe 30 minutes flew by like this. I feel like we could talk for hours. So we're going to have you back again, please. Absolutely. This time with Milena on. Yes. And to all the Latinas out there listening, and anybody who's tuning in, please remember, listen to us on iHeart and on Apple and on Google and on YouTube, all your platforms where you can listen to podcasts. And besos a todas. Suerte con todo. And until next time. Thank you so much. I'll see you later.